Hi there. The Church of Nowhere on religion. I went to an animal rights camp many, many years ago, and I was talking about a natural based religion or a religion based on the worship of nature, because I thought it was sort of relevant to animal rights, because also one would include individual animals uh, as objects of worship or certainly objects of care coming under the worship of a particular nature god or goddess or whatever. Nowadays, I think they call it Wicca, and it's become a kind of a mainstream religion, especially in the USA. But in those days, Wicca was sort of kind of looked at with a bit of suspicion, really, I think. Sort of sacrificing animals and I don't know what all. Anyway, probably it still is now in some parts of the world. But anyway, I was talking about religion, and this lady went completely mad and got really, really angry. I mean, she just said, "Well, religion is absolute bunk," and just tore into religion and tore into me and tore into the suggestion of worshipping nature in any shape or form, or caring for animals because one was a nature worshipping religionist. She just didn't see it at all in those terms. So she got really angry, and I'm thinking about that now, many, many years later. And I suppose really she was referring, or she had in her head, external religion, and the difference in external religion and mysticism, or a religion based on mysticism or a mystical experience. But actually, the Church of Nowhere is basing its religion, I suppose, on moral precepts such as minimal living and vegan lifestyle and things like that. So and antinatalism and meditation. So it's not really quite mystical. I don't sort of claim to have had visions or experiences of the numinous or anything like that. And it's certainly not external religion, because when we look at external religion, and let's have a look at the Tory party at prayer, which is the Church of England. It just supports. I mean, okay, it has an evangelical sort of fundamentalist side, but for the most part, it's an establishment religion created by Henry VIII for political reasons. And although he was a very devout Catholic, actually, and didn't really like the idea of breaking with the Church of Rome, but that's another story. And so we can't really sort of lay too much blame at the door of Henry VIII, really. He was just a victim of circumstances, I think, as much as any. But because he was a tyrant, of course, there were no checks and balances to stop him from doing whatever he liked, and so therefore, he did whatever he liked, and sometimes it was catastrophic. And Anyway, but usually, I mean, so religion also belongs to a period of time when everything was even more undemocratic than it is now. So religion's got very little to do with democracy, at least not in its dark and distant past, or its roots, which are still there. They haven't gone anywhere. I mean, the tree may have changed direction in terms of its growth, but the roots of religion are still very much in the past, when it was really about tribal identity, sort of identity politics, especially amongst the ruling classes and the warrior classes. Because obviously the function of religion for the warrior classes was to convince them that it was worth dying for the emperor or for the tribe or for the community or leadership or whatever. Um, and so, when we look at religion now, external religion, it's all about pageantry. It's all a superstition, actually. I mean, the thing is that when you've got power, political power, you're actually very insecure about your position in society, because that power is ultimately dependent on force, and dependent on your own efforts as well. to maintain that power and to maintain the power structures that maintain your grip on the people. So it tends to make you very superstitious. And so all this sort of royal pageantry of Britain and Freemasonry and all the sort of, all the sort of gobbledygook of Freemasonry and general and all the sort of traditions of the royal family, they're all based on insecurity. And they have a sort of, it's keeping the rabbit's foot really. And it's kind of also believing that there's some kind of God that's wholly unjust and will therefore support and protect the Queen and the Crown, because the Crown represents justice and peace and goodness and all that kind of stuff, or at least it would if it could, if it didn't have to also bear in mind the huge power and money that it actually wields and supports the financial institutions of Great Britain, of course. But they are very insecure because, as you know, the price, the value of stocks and shares can go down as well as up, and that makes people very superstitious. And you often find, money brokers to be very sort of superstitious people and to be into rituals and lifestyles which are kind of ritualistic and even sadomasochistic, and that they're into. I mean, as well as drugs, of course, cocaine keeps you happy. A lot of rituals and a lot of cults and mysteries and all that kind of stuff. All the gobbledygook of Freemasonry is there to kind of keep you kind of content or keep you kind of hopeful that the future will not be disastrous. Whereas in fact history shows that the consequence of capitalism is always pretty much disastrous for one party or another, and you just really got to hope it isn't you that's for the chop, but for somebody else, which of course makes you feel guilty, and so therefore you've got to assuage the guilt. And so in religion, external religion comes in handy for assuaging the guilt that the powerful feel as they wield their power and money over the rest of us. And also religion is for keeping the middle classes happy, because without the middle classes, ever since 1832, in Britain, you really can't do anything at all. So you have to have power by the consent of the middle classes, and that's been true for a long, long time. Anyway, so that's external religion. Well, I mean, religion is a complicated affair. But I mean, I think at heart, well, let's start with the actual name of word religion, religio, religialis, from the ancient Latin. It just means regulation, really, at the heart of it. So if you do anything, like if you meditate every day, and you meditate, or you go into meditation when people are being mean to you, like Danny Shine shows that you can, even on the streets of London. If you do that regularly, or you do it automatically, if you do it every time people are nasty to you, you go into meditation and you breathe and you become aware of your breath and aware of your thoughts, and you let go of your emotional reactions to people being mean to you. Then that's a religion, because it's something you're doing. You're regulating your life. You're regulating your emotional reactions with reference to some kind of meditational practice which is done regularly. So in that sense of the word, the Church of Nowhere, since it espouses meditation, is in fact, strictly speaking, a religion. And even though it doesn't have any structure or clergy, it does have its personalities, I suppose. So often you find religions have personalities attached to them. And although they try not to, you look beyond personality, of course. It's inevitable, I suppose, that people will be attracted to certain personalities, like Danny Shine, for example, and he has his kind of fan club of people, which is a good thing, but also a bad thing, because we hope that people belonging to his fan club don't suddenly go out and beat people up who don't agree with Danny Shine, because that would be horrific, and a horrific development, and Danny Shine would not approve of that at all, in any shape or form. So he doesn't need your assistance, thank you very much. He can look after his own affairs. which is also the thing about religion, is that you try to look after your own affairs and your own moral development rather than trying to get somebody to save you from yourself, or get some savior God to save you from yourself, for that matter, because it ain't going to work, as history shows. And you just, Jesus becomes a codependent, as it were, and sort of boosts your behaviour. However, whatever that behaviour, you don't take responsibility for your own actions. You see, because you lay it all on somebody else, or on some god or church or group or something like that. So you've got to be sort of careful, really. At the end of the day, it goes from you and it comes back to you, you know. And of course, the other thing about religion is, on the sort of positive side, the mystical side, if you like, is religion does recognize something, we don't know what it is, something other than our egos, than our selfishness, something more encompassing than our own everyday cares and selfish desires, and the desire for self-preservation, which of course is so basic to all sentient beings, of course, to self-preservation. No animal wants to die, and no human wants to die either, unless they're unless they're part of the warrior caste that's been absolutely conditioned by religion to want to sacrifice themselves for the greater. But anyway, religion certainly recognizes something more, and something encompassing, something encompassing more of the self, of the individual. And I suppose, really, you say, you could say religion is about sort of connecting to the one, or to the whole of nature, for example, to the whole biosphere of the earth, for example. And you might connect to that. But of course, there are different ways of connecting to the one or to the whole. And I think the Church of Nowhere would argue that you connect to all things, and to all people, and to the biosphere of the planet through some kind of moral code to which you adhere. So antinatalism, minimal living, and vegan lifestyle, for example, these would be kind of moral, ethical lifestyles that you would adopt, or ethical attitudes, I suppose. I mean, towards veganism or towards minimal living, certainly. And that would be the way that you would connect with this something other than, something greater than your own ego, than your own self, particularly as might have to sacrifice some of your desires, particularly to belong to a peer group, for example. You might have to sacrifice that in order to live an ethical life. So if your peer group is into I know, hunting, shooting, and fishing, and you suddenly decide to become a vegan, well, you're going to marginalize yourself quite considerably, because you no longer belong to the norms, values, and beliefs of that particular peer group. So you could be marginalizing yourself. And indeed, when the French government apparently looks at cults and tries to classify cults, because the French hate cults. They hate religion, actually, or per se, but they hate cults. And one of the criterion for deciding whether something is a cult is the requirement of the cult to marginalize yourself in some way by becoming vegetarian or vegan. So basically, a cult is not allowed to lead to self-marginalization. So basically, if you do everything that everybody else does all the time, that's okay. But if you start doing your own thing, apparently this means you're being brainwashed by a cult, which seems to be a bit of a queer idea, really, to me, because surely you're being brainwashed by the mainstream as well. Well, maybe we're all being brainwashed all the bloody time. I don't know. Oops, sorry. Not supposed to swear on this channel. Anyway, so I suppose religion, I think the Church of Nowhere is a religion. I don't think it's a cult. It certainly doesn't have any structure like a cult, and doesn't have any source of finances, or doesn't ask for any money from anybody. It has revealers, it has personalities, but other than that, it's quite it's quite a barking dog, really, isn't it? Really. So on that note, I will say goodbye to you. And the dog has decided I've said enough on this matter altogether. Bye for now.